Good morning, my loves. Well, good day, wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are new around here, my name's Kirsty. If you're watching on YouTube, I am pretty much rolling out with no hairbrush today and looking like a bit of a hot mess, but that's okay because I really wanted to get into the office and record this before I start seeing clients later today, where I will make myself presentable. So if you're new here, welcome. This is the podcast where it is for light workers, starseeds, if you are on your inner healing journey, and just a place that you can come and relate, a place that you can come and go, oh, okay, right. I'm learning, I understand what I'm going through. That's my hope that you get from these episodes. So today we're going to be really talking about how to move through our emotions. So I had a reel that went pretty viral last week on TikTok, and one of the main questions that kept coming up in the comments is, how do I actually move past the suppressed emotions? So that's what I want to talk about today. So if you haven't, go back and listen to our last few episodes where we've been talking about the foundations of healing, and then also we covered understanding trauma and how it shows up in our nervous system, because they're quite important when it comes to dealing with our emotions. Now, I know I've said it in those podcast episodes, and I'm going to say it again because I love to be a broken record. When it comes to our healing, when it comes to us starting to work with our emotions, please understand that you want to create as much safety within yourself, with your body, as you possibly can. Okay. So when we go into doing healing work, of course, things are coming up to the surface. If we already don't feel safe within our environment, within our body, to start to move through all of those emotions, so everything's starting to bubble up, then this is when we're going to start to get into some trouble, and things are going to get much worse before they get better. So creating that foundation is always what I'm going to suggest. So really starting to get your nervous system looked at. Now, everyone's going to be really different, and your healing should be taken as unique as you are. Okay. So whether that means that you do some breath work to regulate your nervous system, whether it's just starting to work with someone that can get your nervous system right, sound healing, energy healings, working with a coach, someone that's going to be able to help you through it. That's always what I'm going to suggest first before we start looking at any of the emotions. Okay. And the other thing is that I really want to say is, this is the uncomfortable part of healing. Okay. And especially if you've had very repressed emotions for a long time, as everything starts to bubble up, we can be in this period and this chunk and this phase for quite a while. It's not just like we move through everything in a day. So remember, I'm in my 40s. So if I'm just starting now, I've got 40 years of this lifetime to deal with, let alone all the past lives, let alone what's being held through the ancestor lines. So it is big work. And I think the other thing that I want to just say is, I know the brain, I know the analytical part of us, and that masculine side of us wants, right, give me the checklist, Kirsty, give me everything that I need to know, and I'm going to start doing it. And yes, I want to give you those tips and those pieces and those nuggets that you can take today, but I want you just to also remember, it's a process. This is long-term work that we're doing. Okay. All right, just wanted to just start there today, because I know that it can be really big, and this can be very big work. And I know for me, so coming from my background, from my childhood, very dysregulated nervous system, very suppressed emotions. Emotions were not allowed in our household. They weren't dealt with very well. So getting to the point where you can actually start to feel, where you're not numb, where you're not disassociated, is also part of doing that nervous system work. Okay, so it's why I say it's so important to start there. Okay, and you might do something like that's really gentle, like Reiki, just a very gentle energy healing practice to just, or, you know, sound healing, something like that, that's going to really just help the nervous system settle before we start getting into the big traumas, wounding, and the big emotions that are kind of trapped within the body and energetic system. Okay, so let's begin with what's the difference between suppressed and repressed emotions. Okay, so suppressed is, we all know this. There's times where we go, you know, something's coming up to the surface. Perhaps you're at work, perhaps, you know, you're doing something and it's just not an appropriate time to feel that, right? And maybe, you know, something bubbling up and you feel almost like on the verge of tears, just feeling very emotional, and we just go, now's not a convenient time, and we push it down. Okay, that's what we call suppressed emotions. Okay, what we want to do is go, now's not a great time, but I'll be home in maybe an hour, and I'm going to then give it time, and I'm going to work through it and process the emotions. Now, that doesn't it doesn't always tend to happen. This is when we get into our repressed emotions. And this tends to be more from our childhood. Yes, we always come back to our childhood stuff with healing because that's where it tends to form. And it's when the emotions don't get processed. Okay, so we're not giving ourselves the time to be in it. So it's just constantly push, 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 and nothing's getting processed. So it's just, think of it like everything just keeps coming in, and it's just, you're getting more and more bogged down. And so then this is like, think of it like from our energy point, everything's getting pushed down, 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 down. The body, the nervous system doesn't know how to handle this. So it starts to disassociate. It starts to just numb out. And if we've been through this process for a really long time, you're a bit more mature like me, and this maybe start where you're starting to heal, is that we've got to deal with all of that. Okay, so that's why we say healing is always layers. It doesn't just happen overnight. Okay, so what may have happened, if you're anything like how I grew up, an 80s baby, we tend to have been that generation that were told, be seen, not heard. Now, my parents, I want to say I love them to death, but we are not on speaking terms anymore, and I've had to really step away. Different story for a different day. But what can tend to happen is, you know, we're told during our childhood, calm down, don't cry. You should just be grateful. And there's no reason for you to be sad, along with a million other things that you may have been told throughout your childhood. Okay, they're just some of the ones that I was told. So what tends to happen is that these then minimize our experience. They minimize how we're feeling, and then we start to kind of push everything down and go, okay, and for many of this is when we start to adapt and we create those fawn responses. So go back to the trauma episode last week, where we started to talk about the different ways that this starts to show up, our trauma. And that fawn response is when we kind of start to go, okay, I'm going to be the good girl. I'm going to just do what I'm told just to get through. It's like our coping skills, you know, of like, okay, there's chaos in our home. I've got to walk on eggshells because of everyone else's emotional instability. So this is where we tend to go, okay, well, it's not safe for me to have my own emotions. Perhaps I've got to start to be responsible for my siblings, or I've got to be that emotional support and just stay neutral for my parents if, you know, if they're arguing and stuff. So this is how that fawn response can kind of start to really form for us. And of course, when our emotions, so when we're being told that, so of course we're just going to stop and push things down. It's that traumatic loop. So even though it's little t traumas, is that we're not processing. So it's like the loop never completes. So then we get kind of caught in it because the body can't process the emotions. And this is why it gets stored, particularly in our sacral and in our solar plexus. So when we're coming back to everything, I always will reference back to energy. And this is why we have so much stagnation in those lower chakras, right? So signs of our repressed emotions, this can show up later in life as nervousness. It can show up as anxiety. It can show up as just feeling very stressed for no reason. Feeling very uneasy when others share their feelings and emotions as well. And of course, our numbing behaviors. So our TV, the social media, drugs, alcohol, whatever your vice is that we kind of use to numb out. For some people, that's meditation and doing our spiritual bypassing because we don't want to deal with this. And as I said, this phase is the big phase. And this is what a lot of us want to bypass because it's frigging tough work sitting in the emotions, you know. And the other thing is we're very conditioned as society. We've lived in this very, very masculine dominated earth for thousands of years. So, you know, we're rewarded for striving, success, you know, that go-getter attitude and always, you know, doing. And we're kind of like, I do all this, it equals happiness. And so this more feminine aspect of us feeling emotions has never really been allowed. And that's obviously through generations. You know, think back to the generations coming through that went through the wars. So those that grew up the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, it was all about, you know, war. And, you know, think about all that programming and conditioning of like, you know, like kind of Wall Street crashes and the Great Depression and all of those things. So it's like they just had to get on with life. There wasn't actually like time to feel into emotions. It was like, right, action. What do I need to do to survive? So we've kind of gone through our parents, if you're my age, our, you know, our grandparents. So it's this is where it comes to this, back to this very generational passing it down of like it's coming through our generation lines. And it's kind of like now the ones, you know, we're this cycle breaker and like, right, we've got to be the ones to really change this for our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and so on. Okay, so let's really talk about I guess the different ways. And I think it's also part of I think it's also become very much part of personal development as well, of like it's almost I want to say it's almost like we've kind of been conditioned. Again, it comes back to that very, I find a lot of the personal development very masculine driven. So it's like there's always an approach to come from the mind. And the thing is, when we're talking about emotions, we have to feel our emotions. So something that tends to really come up that I see with clients and obviously me with everything I've been through as well, that this is, you know, that start of the journey. I was so much in the personal development world. I was listening to so many books and podcasts and trying to come from this mindset. And it's kind of like that masculine, like pushing energy of like, I'm just going to like make myself better and I'm going to get over this myself. But it's coming from that very brain-led space, right? And so for so long, I thought I was actually dealing with these emotions. Like I would be like, what am I feeling? But I was listening to my head. I was listening to the mind and I was listening to all the chatter, not so much actually feeling the body and not picking up on the sensations, because I was so dysregulated. And I think it's a very normal part of it that we really want to always kind of go to the mind. And I think because it's the voice that we hear the most and it's the loudest, it can sometimes feel like, oh yeah, I'm in my body. Even now, if I really get into, if I'm moving through it, I'm doing a lot of work again, through lack and scarcity, and doing a lot of ancestral clearing and past life clearing as I kind of create this wealth codes program. I'm going back through doing deeper layers myself right now, but it's bringing a lot to the surface. And my mind is telling me one thing of how I'm feeling, but it's like when I actually check in with my body, I'm like, that's actually not what I'm feeling. It's the mind is like, the mind's scrambling, going, oh my God, you're doing all this healing work. Like, I don't know how to cope, because it's pushing us out of that comfort zone. And it's like, oh my God, like, it scrambles. So it's trying to keep you in that kind of condensed, familiar space that it knows. So it's really important, I think, as we start to work with the emotions, is to get out of our head, because it has nothing to do with our head, and to actually start to come into the body, right? So a big thing that I often say is we are not the emotion, and we need to just let it pass through our body. Okay, and that kind of really helped me to go, it's just a feeling, and instead of pushing it down, just let it be here. And this has also been part of what I've had to learn. It's like, the more I tried to analyze it, the more I tried to be in my head, the more I tried to heal from this space, it actually just prolonged everything. So I would sit in things for weeks and months, and it would just be lingering and so uncomfortable. But because I wasn't actually letting my body just process through, I wasn't letting those darker emotions, right? Because I've been told my whole life that they weren't allowed in our house. So it felt so uncomfortable, and it felt so unfamiliar to be in them. And we're conditioned, right, all through school, all through our lives, that it's not, and we look down at sadness and grief and anger and depression. It's like, oh, we're told not to show those emotions. So it's like, when it's coming up and it's like bubbling to the surface, it feels so uncomfortable and so unnatural. It's like, I've got to still have a 3D life, and I've got to function. I've got to go to work. And, it's not like we can just always just go to these places and around our family and be like, I'm just in a shitty mood. So I'm just, and to try to not take that out on everyone just because we're feeling something. So for me, it felt so uncomfortable for so long, until I really just had to get to that place of like, okay, right, it's here again. I need to change something. This tactic that I'm trying isn't working. And so then I really had to just go, okay, today this is how I feel, and just let it be there. So, and I think it's important, and because the mind wants to attach to that. And if you've had, if you've suffered with depression, if you've suffered with like suicidal thoughts, if you've suffered with, really low moods, and really been in the depths of despair, I think that's also part of it, is that as soon as we start to feel that again, it feels like it's a very slippery slope. And if we've managed to pull ourselves out of that, we never want to go back to that place. And I can say that for myself as well. And after my son was born, there was a lot of suicidal thoughts. Didn't know at the time much about postpartum depression, but it was, years later, and I was just so stressed, and I was just like, I just don't want to be here. So I think it's a normal part that when we've had that, and then when all of these emotions are coming to the surface, that we just are like, again, we just want to do what we know, right? Of like, push it down. Can't go there, can't do this. And the thing that really helped me through this journey was really, if I said I'm sad, is to turn it into I feel sad. Because for me, if the mind attached to I'm sad, it's like, okay, we know that, we've been there. But for me, it kind of felt like, well, that means I've gone all the way back. All of this work I've done has been for nothing, and I'm back to feeling utterly depressed, not wanting to be here, not wanting to live anymore. So it would take me straight back to that time. Instead, I had to start to go, in this moment, I feel sad. And as soon as I did that, it gave it permission to be there, but it also gave it permission to start to move through, because I wasn't pushing it down. I wasn't ignoring it. I wasn't trying to change it, or put that toxic positivity spin on it that we see, with law of attraction work. And I did that for a while. I tried to be like, no, I'm not feeling these things, because I was like, well, if I'm thinking them all the time, then that's going to be my reality. And how the hell am I going to manifest anything better if I'm always thinking like this? Yes, that's all in that personal development and all through that manifestation work that I went through, and listened to a lot of other people. I believed that. So I went through that very toxic positivity of like, everything's fine, no. I'm creating my own reality, and it didn't. It was just pushing everything down. So I really then had to go, right, let's just feel it. So that's the thing I want to take you through. And again, we're very conditioned to believe we shouldn't feel this. There's something wrong with me for feeling this way. And, nothing against Western medicine. There's time and place for it. But this is kind of the stage where, antidepressants, things like that come in. And those things, sometimes, yes, we need them for that bit of relief. But what it's actually doing is suppressing more and more of our emotions down. So then when people come off them, nothing's changed. It's been a band-aid. Yes, we've got I can take a breath, but they still haven't dealt with any of those underlying emotions. And I think this is kind of part of the problem that we have right now. Right. So, let's go through kind of different approaches. And this is, and I think this is kind of also where talk therapy hasn't worked for a lot of people in the past. I have a lot of people that come to me that have done talk therapy, and it just feels like they're going in loops. And again, because it's not moving the emotions or the energy out. Okay. So this is why I always suggest the somatic practices. This is why I always suggest this is where energy work is going to come in and really be your best friend. Yes, we need to ask ourselves questions and do those practices as well, but we want it as well practice, not just, because then we're kind of going back into the mind of everything. So let's go through some somatic practices that you can start as soon as you listen to this that are going to help you to move through your emotions. So number one is doing a body scan. So when we did our sound healing events, most of the time I would always start with us just doing a body scan. So to do this, all you need to do, you can be sitting, you can be laying down, and you can just do this as a daily practice. It might be first thing in the morning when you wake up, because we often want to go, how do I feel? And then that's when the monkey mind starts. So this is a good practice to go, okay, I'm getting out of the head and into my body. Okay, so all you need to do, let's just do it now so I can give you a quick overview, is you just start at the top of your head. Okay, and it's just like we're doing a whole body scan. All you're doing is you're just noticing any sensations, anything at all that you feel in your body as you move down. Now, we don't have judgment. We don't overanalyze, just go, oh, okay, I'm noticing that, because it's a practice about getting into the body. Because if I go, okay, what am I feeling right now? Okay, the word coming through is judgment, because I'm on here looking like an idiot doing this. But if I actually feel into my body, I don't have that response. So these practices are to get us into the body. And if this mind, this ego, has had control for a really long time, this is the practices that you need to get into, is getting into the body. Okay, so you just start, okay, I'm noticing the top of my head, I'm coming down, coming into the forehead, coming down over the ears, the face, coming down through the jaw, and just noticing, oh yeah, that feels a little bit tight. Yeah, I feel like a bit of pressure behind my eye. It's just noticing any sensations, anything that you feel. If your eyes are closed, you might see different colors. You might just feel different things in your body. And it's part of this just slowing down to actually get into the body. Okay, because we live in this very fast-paced society, and this is what we're used to, is just go, 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 go. And that's our nervous system response, is that it starts to calm things down so that we can actually take note of what's doing. Okay, so you would just go through your whole body. Think of it like a laser beam, just like looking. You could do the front of your body, you can do the back of the body, you can make it that it goes 360 degrees around as it goes down, whatever works for you, but you go all the way to the very tips of your toes. Okay, no judgment on yourself. Okay, great. Just acknowledging that this is what I feel. Okay, great practice to do. Another one is starting to do shaking. Okay, so our somatic practices. So you stand up, you shake your body, shake it all out, right? This is going to help you to move through built up stress and energy in the body. Okay, now for a lot of us, we process a lot through our sleep. Okay, for some of us, we're in our astral body and we're processing healing, processing trauma and wounding, and you know, we're multidimensional beings, right? So for a lot of us, if we're very, very busy, productive during the day, perhaps we're not taking breaks to tune into our body. For a lot of us, while we go into our sleep state, this is the time that your guides, your higher self, can go, right, she's knocked out, let's do some healing to try and help her, get her back into alignment. So in the morning, you may wake up and you feel like a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and all of these emotions coming because you've had energetic healing done on yourself during the night, right? So shaking can be a practice that you could do to get some of that excess energy out, some of the stress, you know, and perhaps you do a few breaks during the day if you've got a highly stressful job, or you know, kids are driving you mad, or anything that's, just go and shake it out. Okay, and of course our grounding practice, this helps us to get into the moment. Okay, so particularly if we're very much driven from our mind, that ego's had the control, it's running the show of your life right now, a grounding practice is going to help you to get into the present moment. Because really, when we look at it from the soul, the spiritual side of things, we only have this moment. And as I take a breath, I now only have the next moment. And this moment I'm in now is all that exists. And this moment now is all that exists. So when you take that breath, when you can just take a minute to ground, all the noise can drop away and we go, right, this is this moment right now. And it kind of put things into perspective of like, we don't need to live in the past, and we also don't need to be so fearful and worried about the future. It helps us to kind of just go, bring everything back to the now moment. Okay, so a grounding practice can be just this, like, look, my voice has dropped. It's a soothing, calming. You might just sit for 5 minutes. You might go for a little walk in nature. You might just sit outside on your patio with, a cup of tea and just kind of take in nature for a minute. Those things are all grounding practices. For you, it might be going to have a shower, just finding a practice, going for a walk in nature, whatever it is, finding a practice for you that just helps you to go, I can take a breath, I'm in the moment, everything else just drops away. Okay. Humming and toning. Okay, so if we, if this can be singing, but kind of like just ha 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 ha, just humming, this kind of thing that you do throughout the day, that sound and vibration is going to start to release some of that emotional tension. And of course, because a lot of our suppressed emotions obviously sit within our sacral and our solar plexus. So below the belly button and above the belly button, this is kind of our storage for most of those emotions. It's very much also related to our throat chakra, okay, the suppressed emotions. So if we've had, times where we've been shut down as a child, if we've had times, no, don't even dare cry, don't even dare whinge, you told you're whinging, be quiet, I don't want to hear it. There's going to, of course, be issues within your throat chakra as well. So the humming, the toning, the singing can help to remove some of that energetic stagnation as well that we've got here. Our mindful movement. So this is to help us to get back into the body and to start to notice those sensations in the body, right? So something like a gentle walk, just doing stretching, yoga, those are very gentle practices, and you might not even notice back pain, leg pain, but then you go into yoga and you're like, oh, like you're laying down, you're just like, oh, like where's this come from? I haven't even felt this. I didn't even know this existed until this moment. So they're just practices that are going to be gentle in the body, but to help you reconnect to the body. Okay. A nice big self hug. Okay, so just wrapping your arms around you the best that you can. This is going to provide comfort and emotional support. And remember, it's giving ourselves the things that we couldn't give ourselves, that our parents didn't give us as a child. So for a lot of us, when it comes to doing our inner child work and starting to move through these emotions, I'm still hugging myself, is that for a lot of it, it's the things that our parents kind of neglected, and it might have been that they weren't emotionally available for us, or they were always too busy to kind of listen to our concerns, what we were going through. And that could be childhood, it can be teenage years, but it's going to be those kind of fundamental years. So that hug in that moment, and of course, as we're moving through emotions and we get that uncomfortable feeling, give yourself a hug. You might need to rock as well. So for me, rocking helps just to kind of help to just soothe and just kind of regulate as well. Okay, and just giving yourself the support in the moment. And a lot of the times when these uncomfortable feelings are coming up, so if we're getting angry, we're getting upset, we're really irritable, okay, what do I need in this moment? Okay, just asking yourself that, instead of like, where we tend to want to go into the mind and go, where's this coming from? And we want the analytical side of the brain to understand what it's going through, instead of just being in the moment and feeling it. Okay, our breath work is going to help to control the breath and to release emotions. Now, I don't mean deep, intense breath work. Yes, there's a time and a place for that. Again, I'm always going to come back to your nervous system. If you're just starting to deal with these emotions, you don't want to be doing like something really harsh, like fire breath. You definitely don't want to be doing, deep shamanic breathwork healings, and especially in a group environment, unless it's someone who's very, very there's someone that's really good that can hold that space, I wouldn't recommend something like that. You want to start with a gentleness, okay? So you want to start with a gentle nervous system breath work, or just starting with a breath. So you can do something as easy today as the box breath, okay? So let's do that together. So we breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. We hold at the top for a count of 4. So just think about it like we're just doing a box, right? Okay, we're going to breathe out through our nose for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. And then breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. So it's like we create a box with our breath, okay? And it can be a 4 count. If right now 4 feels too much, start with 2, okay? And then you can take it. The more that we start to regulate, the more we can work with our breath. Perhaps our chest feels really heavy right now. Perhaps the lungs just kind of feel really compacted. You can then start to stretch it out. You can do then for a 6 count, an 8 count, whatever feels right for you. But that's something really easy that you can start to do. Okay, our next one's EFT. This is a favorite of mine. And obviously when I became an EFT practitioner, this was kind of as I was moving through a lot of emotions, and it's been my go-to. And even today, when I start to get very worked up and things are coming, it's something I go back to. And then as I do it, I'm like, oh God, I feel so much better in the moment. So we teach EFT in our level 2 training, but obviously if you're not wanting to be an energy healer, but you just want to learn the basics of EFT, if you can purchase my limiting belief masterclass, and I actually go through at the end of that workshop, we go through the points of EFT, and I give you kind of the foundations to do it and how to do it. So that's really good. I think it's $22 in the online store. So if you haven't, get that if you want to work with EFT, because it's a really powerful tool to have. The other thing that I tend to teach a lot of my clients that come, and we know that there's, you know, a lot of emotions to move through and there's a lot of dysregulation, is that I usually just teach them, you know, that we can start to just squeeze our fingertips. Okay, so you're kind of squeezing. It's a bit easier when you're on YouTube and you're watching this, is just starting to squeeze your points. Okay, so you're squeezing either side of your nail. Okay, and you can do this. And now this is why I don't kind of go through all the foundation steps of EFT with someone and just go, right, this is something that you can do at work. If you start to feel a little bit stressed, you start to feel a bit anxious, some emotions are coming up, you can just sit and start to just do this for 30 seconds. You can have your hands under the desk. No one's going to see you, and it's going to start to calm down. Okay, so the thing with EFT is it works with the amygdala in the brain, which sets off the response to go into fight, flight, freeze, right? So if the nervous system's already dysregulated, you know, sometimes it's just the smallest thing that's the trigger and it sends us into overdrive, then this is kind of when we go into our spiral. So if you can just start to create calm in that moment, we're not going to have the big eruption like we may have, okay? Or if we're just feeling really emotional, like we're going to start crying, and it's one of those moments that we're at work and we're like, oh, it's not a safe place for me to start being really upset. This will help to calm things down, and you'll find if you just keep doing this, it'll just calm everything down. Not suppressing, it's calming everything down, so it's that response isn't ignited. Okay, so that's a really helpful one. And of course, we can go into a full script to move through. And it's kind of like we do a body scan. So it's kind of just noticing, okay, and especially at the start, it can be very hard for us even to say what feeling it is that we're feeling when we've never been or we've never had permission to go, what am I actually feeling in this moment? It can be very foreign to start to go, I'm feeling, and that's where a lot of people can get off, I want to say off put by EFT, because we've got to come up with the words or the feelings or the emotions, but you can just start tapping. Okay, you can just start tapping. And what we do kind of through it is we go, okay, where do you feel this in the body? Okay, you might say, I feel it in the chest. And I go, okay, if we had to give it a color, what color is it? And then you just sit there for a minute and go, oh, it's red. You're like, you already know. And it's just us being able to identify where it is, and we give it a shape. And we go through these questions. And so instead of us trying to analytically from the brain go, I'm feeling this, it's giving ourselves permission to go into the body and go, okay, it's this shape, it feels like this, it's heavy like a baseball, or it's heavy like a watermelon on my chest. And it gives us permission to start to feel into the body, and then we can start to move through it. So EFT is one of my favorite tools. So like I said, if you want to start to learn the basics of that, go and buy that masterclass. I'll link it in the show notes. And obviously we go into this in level 2 Ray of Light intuitive healing training if you want to go on to learn this. And obviously you're already doing energy healing, you know, or you want to start doing energy healing, that's in there as well. So our last somatic practice is visualization. Okay, so you can just start to sit for a moment and just visualize yourself. Visualize yourself as the version who can self-regulate. Visualize yourself as the version, you know, you might be walking through a forest and you're connecting to your body. Okay, not so much about seeing yourself as this happy version, because we should be saying all emotions are healthy, all emotions are allowed. This is the state that we want to, and this is actually what healing is. The healing is not us trying to fix ourselves. Healing is not, I'm happy all the time. They're kind of the false things that in this industry that you're kind of told, and if you're not getting to that point, it can feel like, well, I've wasted money, or this isn't working, something's wrong with me, because it's not. It's starting to accept there is nothing wrong with me. All of these emotions are part of me, and they are allowed to be here, and I'm allowed to be in full expression of a human, you know. And particularly for those of us that are healers, you know, it's like everything's love and light. Like I have to be this version, and I have to be happy all the time, and I have to do this, and all these preconceived ideas are a load of rubbish. Okay, you get to have a whole human experience. You get to feel the whole range of emotions. And when we start to take that permission and kind of let go of all of the constraints, and we can go, oh, okay, all emotions are allowed, I can feel anything. It gives it permission to move through things so much quicker, because we're just allowing it to be there. I'm like, no big deal. It's fine. I'm allowed to feel this. Okay. So of course there are somatic practices that you can start to do. You can start to implement these into your day, wherever you find time for, whenever you need them. So come back to that as many times as you need. Obviously, if you're wanting to go further, so if you're like, I'm doing those things, but I'm not able to kind of get into the depths that I know that I need to, this is when it's time to work with a healer, a coach, a therapist, and to go further. So I always kind of suggest you want to have someone in your back pocket, your go-to person that can help you to do that. So obviously I'm a big believer in energy healing, because it's starting to move the stagnation out of the different layers, you know, our chakra system, where we hold so much of these emotions, but it's in the light grid. And then this is kind of where we hold a lot of those ancestral emotions, a lot of the past life things as well. So it's permission to go into those much deeper depths within us. And we start to move through the traumas. We start to move through the wounding. We start to move through all of the trapped emotions, and you're in a safe space to be able to do that and go much deeper. Okay, so that's where I always say that's going to come in to work with everything that you're doing with yourself on a daily basis. Okay. Journaling can also help. So particularly for those of you that have very, very repressed emotions, what can tend to help and to help you to move through things is doing journaling and almost doing like just an automated writing. And you might find that you start writing a shopping list or a to-do list, but if you let yourself just keep going further, or you just start with I'm feeling and kind of let things start to come out, you'll find that it's kind of like giving yourself permission just to kind of unravel everything. And it might be that it's all coming from the mind, but at least you're kind of doing a brain dump and getting a lot of it out. And that's a great practice for the end of the day or first thing in the morning. So you're kind of like letting things go. So out of this mind that kind of runs the show. And then it is kind of creating more room for you to get more into the body to work through those emotions. Okay. So, and of course, questions to start asking. So remember, do the somatic work, do your energy work, as well as asking questions, because we don't want to just be coming from that mind and having that mind take over, right? To tell us what's what, because we can't really trust that, because it's been very programmed and conditioned through all of our life. So you don't want to be just fully trusting the mind. Okay, that's full of distortions and disillusions. Okay, so our body, we want to be asking, what am I feeling? Okay, what am I feeling in this moment? And just sit for a minute. Don't listen to that voice. Don't listen to the ego, the inner critic. What am I feeling? And that might be you connecting into just sitting, connecting into your heart for a moment. What am I feeling in this moment? Okay. Then you can ask, what caused this feeling? And just waiting. Okay, this is you communicating with your body. This is you communicating with your higher self and getting the answers for yourself. But it's not coming from, I need to know these answers and I need to solve the problem from my head. Okay. What do I do about these feelings? Is there another way I can view the situation? So remember, the mind wants to come in with the preconceived ideas, the perceptions. It's coming from the computer program that was created through our childhood and teen years to say, this is how my reality, this is how things work. So we want to get out of the head and go, is there another way I can view this situation? How can I cope with the emotions in a healthy way? Okay. And so obviously, we do a lot of this inside heal. And I take clients through this, even if you've just come and had a quantum healing, there's always homework and things to do. And so what I tend to say to a lot of people is, as you kind of really start that inner healing, that spiritual journey, you're going back, you're doing much deeper layers of this healing work, is that what tends to happen is that we do a lot of the somatic practices, we're doing a lot of rituals, we're doing all of the things, the things to try to help us move through. And that's an important part of it. What will happen then is that you may do that for 6 months, 12 months, you're doing all these different things. And then obviously we get to the stage where it's then more, I just check in, what do I need today? Okay, so if you check in, what am I feeling today? Might be in the morning you wake up, what am I feeling today? Okay, what practice do I need to do that's going to help me with that? Okay, and then if it's a day where you're like, actually, I feel okay, it might be then that you just sit and meditate and you connect to your heart, you connect to your higher self, and they're the days that you do that. Okay, and then you might not need to do so many somatic practices, because then it's helping you to go, okay, I've moved through that part of it. So it's then kind of when we start to connect more into our heart And this is when then more of our spiritual side can really start to open and be activated, because we've started to move through all those emotions. So I hope that that's given a lot of tips. As I said, I wanted to create a podcast because so many women were saying, well, how do I start to move through these suppressed emotions? How do I start to deal with, this wounding? So I really wanted today to really be about the practical things that you can do. Again, I will always sound like a broken record. Please start with your nervous system. It is such a crucial part that so many of us missed, and thank goodness we're in a time when nervous system regulation has become a big part of the healing industry, and it's because it's needed. So really look at that. Again, if I can be of help, if I can be of service, if you want to apply for Heal, which is our 6-month healing container. So we move through nervous system work. We move through doing your inner child, your inner teen work. We're looking at the father wounds, the mother wounds. We're looking at all of your conditioning, and we move up through the body to remove all of the wounding, all of the trauma, all of the stagnation held. So if that seems what's right for you, the applications do close at the end of this week. I can keep it open for a couple more days into next week, but that'll be kind of the cutoff. If you do want to apply, you want to do deep work, there's some stuff for you to really move through. Having someone in your space, holding you in a container of light for 6 months, and having that mentor, having someone to help you to do the healing work is honestly just one of the best things that you can do for yourself if you want to move through this work. Like I said, obviously, if you want to just learn a little bit about EFT, you want to work through those breaking your limiting beliefs, then obviously the masterclass for $22 may be of help to you to get started. Maybe just a one-off, one-on-one session, maybe where you want to start to move through this. So as always, I like to have an array of tools that can help you to really move through these things. And most importantly, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone in this journey. You don't need to do inner healing work on your own. It is big. It is in the depths. And I think for a lot of us, we think we've got to move through this on our own. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't lean on coaches and healers to help me, because it's really hard to move through your own stuff. And particularly like through this stage, that really uncomfortable bit at the start, until you can get things a bit more regulated, until you can start to get that ego kind of under control, you can start to move through some of the emotions. You want someone in your corner for that. So if it feels right for you, I'd love to have you apply. Let's have a chat. Let's see if this program's right for you. Take you through these fundamental stages of healing, and really just be your cheerleader in your back pocket. So that's it from me for today. Wealth Codes is coming. It is coming at the end of the month. I'm just recording the final few lessons and the last few frequency clearings for it. So I'm very, very excited. You can check out all about the new program and go on the wait list now. So if you do head over to the website, and I'll put it in the show notes as well, it will be out at the end of July, and this is moving all through our money beliefs. If you do apply for Heal and you do work with me for 6 months, you do get this program for free, because obviously money is a big thing, and our relationship with money is also a big thing. So it's part of the healing work is to move out of lack and scarcity, to start to welcome abundance in our life, and it's a part of our healing process. So you do get that program for free, but you can go on the wait list now for Wealth Codes, and you will be the first to hear about it at the end of the month as soon as it is released, and there'll be a free masterclass that goes with that as well, so you can dive into where your limitations are around money and abundance and wealth. So for me, I need to go take a drink. I will see you guys next week on the next podcast episode. If you are here on YouTube, I would love for you to like and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss a podcast or anything else that we put out. And let me know in the comments what your takeaways were. I'd love to see your aha moments, your epiphanies, anything that comes through for you that's kind of like, oh, okay, right, that makes sense on my journey now. Let me know in the comments. If you're listening over on Spotify and iTunes, I would love it if you can leave us a 5-star review so that it helps go to the people that really need to hear these podcast episodes, who need that help on their own healing and spiritual journey. So for now, I will say goodbye. Thank you so much. I love doing these episodes. Please feel free to share them out with friends, family, anyone that needs them. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.